Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we continue the BusyWorks Beats podcast. And I was listening to the Producer Diaries podcast with J Cactus, Ocean, LLB, and they were discussing placements and how to be, they were talking about loop making, placements, and basically being a content creator all in one. And so I'm making this video because I want to address the old me who used to think that I need to get some external validation in order to be quote unquote successful. So today's video is going to be about you can be a real quote unquote real music producer without leaving your home. So the biggest myth is that you have to go to LA. You have to be in the industry, a lot of people say. So let me debunk a lot of this, and we're going to use concrete examples. I'm going to back up my argument. And if you guys, still think that there are things I'm missing or you have a counterpoint, leave them in the comments below because we want to expand the conversation. Ultimately, let me just start off with my perspective. I think of myself as both an artist, a producer, a business person, a marketer, all these different titles. So when I'm producing for myself, by myself, I'm completing all of the roles within myself. And so I don't need external people to be a producer or to be an artist or to be the businessman, the manager, or to be the marketer. I am all those things in one. And I think when you're a polymath like this, somebody who could do multiple, skilled at multiple things, this gives you the leverage to be able to create on demand. Imagine you had to constantly wait. This is why big corporations are so slow. It's because there's no one person behind the organization. So if Microsoft, for example, wanted to add a feature that, as soon as you log in, they get your Face ID and they want to scan your mood based on your face curvature. Okay, well, that's a great idea. But, the problem is you have to run through the bureaucracy of the corporations, and you got to go through the board, and you got to go through the stockholders, and you got to go through all these people before the decision's even made. And then secondly, in order to implement the decision, you're going to need a whole department to work on this, another department to work on that, a third department to work. So it's a lot of this broken down, process. Okay, it's a separated, segmented process. It's not streamlined. Now, greater corporations do streamline through different departments, but my point is that you can't just implement it today and see how it works. You have to go through all these steps before you can even move. That's why big corporations are so slow. And the point I'm trying to make here is that when you are the artist, the producer, the business person, the marketer, let's think about who these people are. Ryan Leslie is this, okay? Kanye West is this. Jay-Z is this. Now, in Jay-Z's case, you could argue that he had a manager, Dame Dash. You could argue that Kanye West had lawyers to help him out and different things like that, which is true. I'm not saying you're doing everything by yourself, but these people are business-minded. These are artists and producers. Think of every great producer. Timbaland was an artist and producer. He was not just chasing artists his entire career. Ryan Leslie, artist and producer. Kanye West, artist and producer. Jay-Z's not a producer, so we're going to take him off that list as far as artist and producer. Think about Scott Storch. I don't know if he made records. Metro Boomin is an artist and producer. Okay, so these are just Southside, artist and producer. Okay, Prince, artist and producer. So when people try to put me in a box and say you have to be the behind the scenes people of the world, no, they're trying to put you in a limiting box. Think about Prince. Why does nobody question Prince not having a producer? He did everything by himself. He was even independent and didn't rely on the greater corporations to do everything for him. So that's why we need to start thinking a little bit bigger. The way you come into the music industry or the music business will determine how you operate. And a lot of people in the traditional industry, they have all these roles and titles, and they want to put you in a place because that's how they control power over you by telling you what you are. Oh, you're just an intern. Oh, you're just somebody coming to LA. You're a beginner. You're a novice. You're an out of towner coming to LA. So they put you in a certain ranking. And I'm here to tell you that as a person who doesn't chase placements, as far as people outside of myself, okay, I am my own artist. So technically, every time I work with myself, I'm getting my own placement. And I have 5,000 videos on YouTube alone. Second, but, even making more points is that they try to pin you in this role, whether that's an intern coming into LA, an out-of-towner, somebody who's just a loop maker, just a beat maker. You're not a real producer. You don't have connects. They're the person getting the placement, so they deserve X, Y, and Z. And so I just want to map this out so that it's very clear. You don't need to seek external validation in order to be successful in the music industry. I've proven that. I'm probably the best proof of that. I don't chase placements. You guys know I don't chase placements. I've worked with $4 billion brands: Avid, Sweetwater, Razor Music, which had the campaigns with Metro Boomin, Murder Beats, Dead Mouse, Anderson .Paak. Worked with them for multiple years. and also the Near protocol when Web3 was a thing, when crypto was like on fire. Okay, so I work with $4 billion corporations directly. This is not through somebody else. This is not, somebody put me in position. Now with the Razor thing, I was put in position at first, but the second and third year, I went to Razor directly, okay, and pitched my own self. So all I'm trying to tell you guys is that you have the power. Now, when I'm thinking about my business, I'm thinking about how to move forward, not how to move backwards. To me, this is my perspective, game from busyworksbeats.com. If I were to chase a rapper, who I think would blow up, and I just chased him around the city and was in this session and that session, guess what that cost me? Time, my mood. I don't want to be around people who smoke. I don't want to be around people who are belligerent. I don't want to be around people who just waste my time. And so a lot of creatives, they're not in it for just money. They're in it for, the party lifestyle because they didn't go to college, or they're in it for the social validation because they have insecurities. I'm not in it for that. Okay. So I don't celebrity worship. And it's unfortunate that, when a lot of these newer producers get online, they celebrity worship. They worship Metro Boomin, they worship Murder Beats, they worship Southside. And it says it right in the Bible, thou shalt not create idols. What is an idol? An idol is someone you put higher than yourself. Okay. And so as far as commanding your reality, you have to understand that what I'm teaching you is how to be self-sufficient, how to be self-reliant, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many events you go to, how many network events. Let's map this out. Let's say you go to NAMM, for example, which is the conference that just happened down in Anaheim. It's a great conference. It's very fun, great place to link up with other content creators. The reason is because it gives people a reason to leave the home. If somebody said, hey, let's connect and make a video, one person's in New York, another person's in Kansas. They don't have a big enough reason to leave their home for it to look legit. Okay, so it looks sketchy. They're like, I'm leaving just to make a video with you. It's not even worth my time, but NAMM there's hundreds of people you might run into and hundreds of opportunities all in one. So it's worth the trip in that case. So a lot of people go to NAMM. But, every year of going to NAMM, what have I done? I've done public speaking on the stage of Universal Audio. So for people telling me I didn't know how to mix and people telling me I didn't know pro gear and I didn't know anything about this, why did Universal Audio pull me to their stage? It's because they see value there. They see that we've created an audience. They see that I know my stuff to a degree. I've created my own sound. So I was a public speaker at Universal Audio stage, which is one of the biggest stages at NAMM. Okay, so public speaking is what I've done. I've worked directly with these companies. I've done, reels and different video content with the companies at NAMM. And my point is, after all of that stuff, what came out of it? Like, I really had to look back and say, why am I wasting my time going to NAMM? This is not a shade to NAMM. I'm saying, as a person who's gone through this, been around 10,000 something, I don't even know how many people go to NAMM. I want to say 20 something thousand people probably go to NAMM when it happens. I've been around all these people, all this networking opportunity, the top of the top people. But at the end of the day, it does not guarantee anything, because when people go to these things, they think that networking, here's what people think networking means. People think networking means other people owe you stuff. And I will tell you right now, that is completely false. You have to earn your merit. You have to create value for other people before you ask for anything. You're not going to go to any place without giving anybody anything and expecting something out of it. And so I've given my public speaking. I've given content to companies. I've given sales to companies because I promoted these companies. And long term, it may have led to like a little opportunity here or there, but it's not anything substantial. So when you guys are chasing artists and chasing companies and to me, that's working backwards. It's completely working backwards, especially if I'm not working with $1 billion brand where it's worth the extra headache to change this or that, So for me, $1 billion brands are my target. I'm working with the top of the top. Ask Drake, what's a Drake placement to Drake? And this is the question that stumps a lot of people. What is a Drake placement? If you're Drake, everybody wants a Drake placement. But if you're Drake himself, what is a Drake placement to Drake himself? And the answer is he works with himself. He is the placement. And that's how I think. He works with the $1 billion brands. He works with companies that he can lever up 10 times, 100 times. That's who he works with. That's who I want to work with. Not artists who may or may not pay you. Not artists who won't really add much to you. It's working backwards to me. And a lot of people are taking a lot of risks. And for the small chance to work with an artist, to me, that's just not making much sense. Okay, so that's my mindset. I don't want to put that on other people. But my point is, I'm still a real music producer without leaving my home. I haven't left my home to go to NAMM this year. I have the same relationships I've had before NAMM and after NAMM. NAMM doesn't change anything. The reason people go to NAMM is because if you're a manufacturer, for example, and you need to distribute your product, you have to go to NAMM so that people can feel the product, test the product. That's where they go to buy the product in bulk. That's where they make deals. NAMM is not about the show floor. NAMM is about the upper room where they cut deals. Okay, it's where distributors buy from manufacturers. It's basically like if you're trying to make a hoodie and you're trying to find the best manufacturer and person who can make a hoodie for your merchandise, you're going to go to China and go on the ground and figure out who is the best material. What's the material feel like? What's the best fit? What's the best colors? Who can print the best? Who can print and wash the clothes and it's still the same color? That's why you go to the manufacturing sectors of the world. China, LA's fashion district, New York's fashion district. That's what it's for. Okay, the same thing with NAMM. It's basically pulling all the manufacturers together so they can sell their materials, whether wholesale or just one by one, at NAMM. That's the real purpose of NAMM. It's not about the showy stuff on the show floor that gets on YouTube. It's about cutting deals upstairs. So as a content creator and a music producer, that doesn't add value to you if you're not a manufacturer trying to, get distribution for your product. And so all I want people to understand is that the reason here, let me just show you guys. There are a lot of quote unquote industry music producers that I respect who are chasing that grind, and shout out to them. And they come to me for advice for this online thing because they understand that building your online brand and building your online business is the foundation of your own sovereignty. Okay. If you don't understand that, maybe this video isn't for you just yet. Okay. I'm not talking down to anybody. I just want to say that you maybe haven't gotten to this level yet. But when you can control your own income, when you can control your own messaging out to the world, when you can control your own distribution, this is what makes you sovereign, I'll say, as a music entrepreneur in the music business, in the music industry. This is what I'm trying to teach you how to do. I'm not teaching you how to be reliant on somebody else for income, hoping that you get a placement, working hours, wasting your time in studio sessions with dumb artists. Let's be honest. A lot of artists just are dumb. This is just what it is. Not saying all artists, but a lot of artists are they're in it for the lifestyle. They're in it for the glam. They're in it for the vanity. You're in it for the love of it. A lot of people are in it for the vanity aspect. And if you're not about that, I'm not going to sit, like Nick D said, I think one of the biggest independent artists said, he has a family, he's on a farm. He's not trying to waste time with people in the studio. It doesn't matter how great they are. They're not trying to waste time in the studio, spending time away from his family if he doesn't need to. I'm a family man now. Okay. I have a child. Okay. And the point is that supersedes all of this, killing yourself in a studio session at night. It's just stupid. I've done it. And I think a lot of people, let me just add this anecdote. I had a commercial studio outside of Philadelphia. It was a smaller studio. It was more of a studio complex, but I owned a smaller studio. I rented a smaller studio space in this studio complex outside of Philadelphia. Now, it sounds cool to have a bigger room. It sounds cool to have all the walls acoustically treated. It sounds cool to have the best electricity. It sounds cool to have really thick walls that block from the outside noise. That all sounds great. It sounds cool to have all your synths, laid out where you can play any synth at any time. It's plugged up to your patch bay. You have the best recording chain you've ever had in your life. That sounds cool. You're running through a Neumann 87 into a preamp, into the, converters, into the computer. It sounds cool. But the problem with all that, even though the sound could be maybe 10% better, the feeling of it, the mood of it, and people who haven't experienced this, you won't understand until you've experienced it. So for people who haven't experienced this, you can't say what my experience is because you've never experienced it. Okay. And so what happens is because I was so independent, sovereign, I liked my own space. When I had that commercial studio, it just felt like it wasn't my own space, which was true technically. It felt like even though it was bigger, it wasn't better. It felt very flat and very, almost lifeless. Okay. It was like, why am I doing this when I could just do this at home? Why am I paying tolls to come here? Why am I paying, this studio bill every month to work when I could just be doing this for free in my house and not have to drive anywhere? I realized very quickly the studio that everybody wants to get into, they think bigger is better. They think, oh my goodness, wait, when I can record in a bigger studio, when I can have more stuff, they're going to be more excited. And you're going to find that all you need is your laptop and your headphones. Beat making is beat making is beat making is beat making. Yes, you might have better speakers and, a sonic representation of the image in a studio that's acoustically treated. But you can, again, that 10% difference is not worth the lack of joy that you get from just being in your space, a place that you're familiar with. You can go downstairs and use the restroom. You could get food. You could play with your dog, whatever the thing is throughout the day. Whereas at the studio, you're on somebody else's turf, unless you have a built studio in your own home. All I'm saying is bigger does not mean better. Going analog does not mean it's better than what's in your computer. I've done it. I've bought the synths. I bought the outboard processing. I bought the high-end speakers. I've had the acoustic treatment. I've had everything they tell us to get. It doesn't make me more excited about music production. The only time I can see that truly being a thing is if you're trying to build a recording studio and you want to build a business around recording. Outside of that, getting a lot of all this other stuff does not make somebody more excited. I just want to warn you guys, because as beginners, you think that the next best thing is going to make you happier. It's not. I've even given away some outboard gear because I'm like, even though it sounds a little bit better, it's just not worth, my space of mind, if that makes sense. So all I'm saying is you can be a real music producer without leaving your home. In fact, if you have to leave your home to influence somebody to do something, you don't really have chops. You don't have sales chops. You don't have sales skills. You don't have persuasion skills. You can't convince anybody about anything that you have going on because you have to leave your house. They have to see you in person. What does that even change as far as somebody's business acumen, how good they are? Seeing somebody in person. You could, if you wanted to have a conversation, you could have it over the phone or do a Zoom call. You do not need to leave your home to be a music producer. Yes, you could be in the mix in LA and pull up on sessions here and there. But again, if you're past that, which I call myself past that, and I don't mean I'm better than, I just mean that I don't find that fun, chasing placements and jumping session to session and waiting for somebody to call to invite me to. It's kind of like video games. Like imagine you're playing Call of Duty or or Grand Theft Auto, and you just had to stay online until somebody invited you to a voice chat party. Like you just had to stay around until somebody invited you to a voice chat party. That would be a crazy life to live because you constantly have to be off rhythm. You constantly have to be waiting. And I just don't like that lifestyle. So that's something that you have to consider if you think that LA is the end all be all. There are a ton of people in LA that haven't gotten in sessions. Let's debunk this mindset that you have to be in LA to be in the industry. If that's true, I was in LA. I booked Paramount Studios for like $1,200 or something like this. I forget the rate. I think it was like 120 an hour or 80 an hour. I forgot the exact rate at that time. Booked it for almost an entire day. I think it was 2 days, actually. We booked the entire day for 2 days. Now, I was in LA. People did pull up to the session, but I didn't know who they were. They were friends of the person in the session, but I didn't do business with them. I met them in the hallway. That was cool. Great. Went on about my day. Nothing added years later. What I'm saying is, you could have been in LA in Hollywood, walked right by Paramount Studios. You weren't invited in. So it doesn't matter that you were in the physical location of LA. And my point is, there's so much to tell you from my perspective, as a person who doesn't chase placements, who doesn't, showcase plaques and all these different things from the industry, how do I have so much influence and ability to leverage in the music industry when it comes to music industry producers? It's because I was known for something else. Whenever you're in a position where the other person feels like you need them, you actually have less leverage. Okay, so this is a general rule of thumb you could use in the music industry. If the other person that you're meeting in the music industry feels like you need them for anything, then you have less leverage. Okay, my point is you guys got to learn how to build your leverage going into the music industry. You shouldn't have to need any of these people. You should want to work with them. They should want to work with you. As far as needs, that's when it comes down to supply and demand, manufacturing, wholesaling loops. That's when you get into that type of game. And I just want to encourage folks who think that you have to be in LA, New York, wherever, to have a music career. That's not the case. Maybe for a recording artist or people who do live shows, if you don't do that, recording or live shows, you can produce from anywhere. You can send files from your computer. You do not need to be in a session. In fact, when people are in music sessions in LA, here's another point, you're paying for time. So do you think an artist wants to pay more money to wait for you to make a beat in the studio? Some people do it. They sell beats by making it from scratch, but you're paying studio time and you're paying the producer. So you want to pay double the bill because you want to wait for somebody to make a beat? That's stupid. So if I was an artist going to record, I would have the beat before I even went to the studio because my job at the studio is to record. And I've spent many times at studios where engineers could take 30 minutes just setting up. Right there, you're wasting time just setting up the mics and changing the purpose of the session. And so that's all I'm saying to you guys is that you need to understand that there's a lot of narratives going around that you have to be in this place. You have to be in America. You have to be in LA. That's completely false in 2024. I'm definition and proof of it. Can you work with the top artists in the world and top producers in the world? You can. I've done it. Okay. As far as business deals. Okay. Because I have what's called leverage. Okay. So can you work with $1 billion companies from your home without leaving the home to meet the $1 billion companies? Yes. It's called leverage. It's called brand building, online business building. You could do it too. You do not have to leave your home. In fact, I'm super comfortable in my home to where I wouldn't leave my home unless it was some mega opportunity. I'm not leaving my home for anything. Okay, so that's when you have leverage. Okay, so I just want to teach you guys to have a different mindset when you go about this music industry, this music business, because a lot of people will try to trick you so that you fall in the line so that they can control your outcomes. And ultimately, you should be in control of your own outcomes based on your effort, your hard work, and the systems you build. If you want to learn more, just listen to these podcasts. I give you a different perspective on how to actually control your future. So thank you for watching. It's Game from BusyWorksBeats.com.